There has been a game of chicken these last few weeks with the COVID-19 outbreak going on. I want to send my best wishes to everybody all around the world. We're all affected here, health-wise, economically, mentally. It's been crazy. And every single sport of note has canceled. Every single form of entertainment has canceled. Broadway shut down. Madison Square Garden shut down. Arenas are shut down. The CDC went from saying we need no gatherings of more than 50 people to now no gatherings of more than 10 people. This is a serious health crisis. No March Madness, no NCAA. NFL season probably going to be delayed, at least some parts of it. MLB suspended indefinitely. NBA suspended indefinitely. NHL, NASCAR, the Masters, Bellator MMA. The only two goofs that thought that they could pull this off in the midst of all these bans and curfews and, oh, by the way, a public health emergency were, of course, two guys who are pretty tight with the president here. Vince McMahon of WWE and UFC President Dana White. Now, Dana White did run a card in Brazil over the weekend. No fans, limited staff. From what I understand, they did no COVID-19 testing, which is insane to think about. And in the next 3 weeks, their events are postponed, but they are desperately trying to keep Khabib versus Tony Ferguson going, even if they can't do it in the U.S. Well, last time I checked, COVID's everywhere. It ain't just in the U.S., it's in Canada, it's everywhere. I got a friend in Saudi Arabia. She's been stuck there for a week because they can't even travel due to the outbreak. And she works there, and she can't travel back home. She can't travel to Dubai. She can't travel to Lebanon. She can't travel anywhere. So, WWE was in a similar conundrum, right? Now they have their Orlando Performance Center. UFC's been trying to run MMA events at the Apex, their version of the Performance Center in Vegas, but Vegas is, of course, also on damn near lockdown. MGM just closed all of its casinos and everything else. So what the hell can happen? What the hell can WWE do? Would WWE really be short-sighted enough to run the Super Bowl of their profession, of their industry, in the Performance Center in front of no fans? Would they really be petty enough to still roll with WrestleMania in just 2 weeks? And the answer is a shocking, resounding yes. WWE has made this statement. In coordination with local partners and government officials, WrestleMania and all related events in Tampa Bay will not take place. However, WrestleMania will still stream live on Sunday, April 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WWE Network and be available on pay-per-view. Only essential personnel will be on the closed set at WWE's training facility, that being the Performance Center, in Orlando, Florida, to produce WrestleMania, which, wow. First things first, I want to send my heartfelt sympathies to all the independent wrestling promoters and wrestlers who are negatively affected by this, who were running shows, whether it be WrestleCon, the Collective, all these companies. I mean, there's not going to be wrestling shows in the U.S. of any note for at least 2 months, and that's just crazy to think about. And so I want to send my deepest sympathies to them. And I also want to send an open invitation to anyone, any indie wrestler, any indie promoter that wants to promote, that wants to talk about their streaming service or merch or story or whatever. You have an open invitation here on TSC News. But WrestleMania is still taking place, and I find that absolutely preposterous. Here's why. WWE, in the grand scheme of things, does not mean crap. I say that as a hardcore, almost lifelong wrestling fan. It doesn't mean crap. Yes, it's nice to put smiles on people's faces. Yes, it's nice to give people a welcome distraction. But people don't love WrestleMania because it's just two dudes or two girls wrestling, fighting. No, they love it for the pageantry. They love it for the pyro, the ballyhoo, everything, the entire package. That's what makes WrestleMania WrestleMania. And if you just have Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar in essentially an empty gym, kind of similar to WWE 2K when you're creating a wrestler, is it really WrestleMania anymore? Does it really mean anything anymore? Does Drew McIntyre or Shayna Baszler winning their respective world titles mean anything in the grand scheme of things, especially right now. Now, if the NBA was running in empty arenas as they were planning to, if MLB was playing in front of empty stadiums, if MLS was running, if Premier League was running, if there were other sports, major sports running right now, I'd say, okay, you know what? The precedent's been set, whatever. Okay, it's unfortunate, but hey, why not? But no, they're not even running an empty Raymond James Stadium where they can do pyro and all the theatrics and infuse some crowd noise, maybe get some fans connected via Skype. I don't know, something crazy. No, they are just airing this in an empty gym, granted a state-of-the-art performance center gym, to millions of fans. Now, unless they have a Hail Mary financially and they're able to get a network like, say, ESPN, or maybe even a streaming service like DAZN, which is desperate for content right now, if they could get one of those networks, those platforms, to last minute, or maybe behind closed doors as we speak, bid for the broadcast rights to WrestleMania, then you know what? Maybe it'll work out for them. Maybe ESPN will say, you know what, damn it, we need more content. UFC's postponed the next 3 weeks. Here, Vince, here's a stack of freaking money. Go put it on ESPN. That'd be huge. And that would make sense to an extent. But why is this a bad move in my humble opinion? Well, a few reasons. One, as I just laid out, without all the crowd, the pageantry, everything, it's not WrestleMania. It's just not. And in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't mean anything. Number 2, patience. Even with the potential bidding war that an ESPN might get into, or DAZN, or whoever, and this is just pure speculation on my part because there are a couple weeks away until WrestleMania at the time I'm recording this, I think they'd still make a lot more money if they just postponed this, if they just waited it out. And look, Donald Trump said today that this could clear up, or not clear up, but get better by July or August, which is insane. Crazy to think about, right? Now, Dr. Fauci, who works under him, said, we evaluate this every 2 weeks. So Trump likely spoke way too soon on that. Could be sooner than that, and, God forbid it could be later than that. But wouldn't it make more sense if WWE had struck a deal with the city of Tampa? Wouldn't it have made more sense if they struck a deal and said, you know what, we've already committed to LA next year, but you know what, we'll do Survivor Series. We'll do SummerSlam. We'll guarantee, if you give us X amount of money, we will guarantee X number of Raws, SmackDowns, NXT takeovers, a pay-per-view. And you know what? We'll even throw in an extra pay-per-view, for the economy's sake. They could have done that, and they could have worked it out, and he could have just postponed WrestleMania until next year. If the NBA Finals can likely not even take place, if March Madness and some of the end of these college kids' careers in all college sports can't even take place, if the NFL draft as we know it can't even take place, although it still is airing in some capacity, then what's the point of airing WrestleMania? What is the point? And let's just say this does end up on WWE Network, and it just stays on WWE Network, and it's not ESPN bidding for WrestleMania rights, or ABC or whatever, or NBC or whatever channel needs content, right? Let's just say it stays on the WWE Network. What is the point? Why would you risk foregoing that kind of revenue? If you're a shareholder right now, and 45 days ago, Vince McMahon abruptly dumped the co-presidents, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, and then 45 days later, he's getting into a pissing contest with the city of Tampa Bay in a damn pandemic? And he wants to run his guaranteed money-making show, well, to an extent. He wants to run his guaranteed money-making show in front of no fans? No fans? No rights fees? No nothing? For $9.99? During a time when a lot of fans don't feel like spending money? What in God's name is Vince McMahon doing? If you're a shareholder, not just a fan, but if you're a shareholder, you got to seriously ask that question. And you got to ask yourself, is this the guy that should be leading the company going forward? Or when this unfortunate downturn in the economy and recession is all said and done, and a lot of people are already feeling it, people in the hospitality industry especially, people with small businesses. I want to, by the way, real quick, just send my thoughts and prayers out to y'all. I know it doesn't mean much, but seriously, I know a lot of people being hit hard by this in this country, worldwide, just from an economic standpoint. when it's all said and done, do the shareholders say, you know what, might be best if Vince steps down? Or, do they say, hey, you know what, might be, or does somebody get in Vince's ear after this whole debacle and say, you know what, man, might be best to cut your losses and just sell this to Disney or something, or whatever company would buy WWE? I don't know. But if I'm a shareholder, this doesn't put a lot of confidence in Vince McMahon for me. I feel bad for the wrestlers. I feel bad for a guy like Drew McIntyre finally getting his moment. Shayna Baszler getting her moment. Oh, man, I'm not feeling this. I'm just not feeling this. And sometimes I just think that the show doesn't have to go on. Just like the show didn't have to go on when Owen Hart died in the ring. Just like the show didn't have to go on when Jerry Lawler had a heart attack on live freaking TV. Just like it doesn't have to go on right now during a damn pandemic. Now, here's something that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. I think there might be an actual internal fear in the back of Vince McMahon's mind and some people very high up in WWE that see more metrics than us that say and think, you know what? If we go dark for even a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even if we just have archived footage, which, by the way, they have God knows how much footage they could use from WWE Network for shows for the next couple months. And Lord knows it would help a lot of these wrestlers you heal up and stay fresh, and especially in the midst of something so awful, there would be one positive there, and that they'd be able to be home with their families and be mentally and physically recharged when it's all said and done. Knock on wood. But you know what? There's a part of me that believes that Vince McMahon, maybe even Triple H, and a few other guys there probably think, you know what? If we go dark for a couple weeks with our already low ratings, with our already sagging attendance and fan base, it's going to be next to nothing by the time we come back. Now, that could just be a conspiracy theory on my part, but think about it. I mean, they're down to their hardest of hardcore fans. They were limiting house shows, cutting back to begin with. The network was not meeting expectations 4, 5, 6 years after launch, which is one of the reasons why Barrios and Wilson are gone. So who's to say that's not a reason why Vince McMahon feels like, no matter what, I got to run WrestleMania. And you know what? Even though I just ripped Dana White, and rightfully so, and Endeavor, the parent company of UFC, for still trying to run shows and posing a health risk to people because presumably they're not testing for the coronavirus, I think they're in the same boat. And from what I understand with the UFC, I think the parent company owes a lot of debt. And, they're going to run at all costs. And it's unfortunate. And that's why you see combat sports like MMA and pro wrestling, for as big as they get, for as big of stars as they can create at times, why, at least for the time being, they'll never be, outside of a few exceptions, as respected as some of the mainstream sports. And I don't consider it to be a sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it, because of shady, grimy, petty BS like this. There are bigger things out there than sports right now. I love the fact that I got to talk about NFL free agency today, but guess what? Players aren't actually putting pads out there. They ain't putting themselves at risk. They ain't putting the crowds at risk right now, okay? It's harmless. And this goes for AEW too. Because I know AEW is apparently going to be running some closed shows and whatever the case may be. And it seems like to me, just based on my observation online, that the state of Florida is really not taking this all that seriously. Well, guess what, fam? Y'all should. Because New Jersey already is. New York already is. And it's going to get worse, unfortunately, before it gets better. So it would be nice if some of these industry leaders, particularly ones that have headquarters in the state of Florida, would show some initiative, would take some initiative and say, you know what? Screw WrestleMania. Or you know what? We'll tape once, a few shows, and we'll just have archival footage for the next couple months, and then we'll regroup in a month or two and figure it out. That's what I would do. But you know what? I ain't in pro wrestling. I just cover it. And the reality is, WrestleMania 36 is taking place in a glorified NFL training center in a gym in the WWE Performance Center, Orlando, because Vince McMahon could not wait at least a couple of months to see how this thing shakes out. You want to put smiles on people's faces? Here's how you put smiles on people's faces. You either call this WrestleMania or call it something else. You charge this on pay-per-view. You increase the tier on WWE Network, like an extra $5 for people to watch the show. And guess what? At least half the proceeds or maybe even all the proceeds, go towards healthcare workers. Go towards their resources. Go towards small businesses. You want to put smiles on people's faces and give people a distraction? Take that money. Take that money you make from WrestleMania, from subscriptions, everything else, from merch, whatever. Okay, put it towards this cause. You want to talk about helping people and whatever else, and we're all into philanthropy and everything else. All right, okay, stop working with Susan G. Komen, which is one of the worst ratings on Charity Navigator. And guess what? Maybe take some of that money you donate there and donate it to people that need it. Donate it to some local Tampa Bay hospitals, because guess what? They're going to need resources. Donate it to food banks. Donate it to something. Vince McMahon's got enough money. That's the craziest thing, too. In terms of cash on hand and these massive TV deals from Saudi and from Fox and USA, they got enough money. But Vince McMahon can't help himself, because he thinks, much like Dana White, that the world revolves around him in the WWE, and he's going to run WrestleMania. And look, it might be a good show. It's definitely going to be a bizarre show. But at the end of the day, I do genuinely believe, between this saga and between not having any patience and foresight whatsoever, that he's actually going to, in the long term, hurt the WWE brand rather than do what he thinks he's doing, which is help that brand. Now, before I go, I want to take some comments here. I know there's a few people here. I just want to send a shout out to people watching on the live stream. Dragon Flair, Rance Jackson, John Marie. 2020 has turned into bizarre world. Yeah, by the way, I just want to say, guys, I hope y'all stay safe. I hope y'all stay indoors. Take this seriously no matter where you're at. Rance Jackson, why not postpone it? I get that there's a lot of money involved, but as soon as one person says they got the virus from WrestleMania, they're going to lose so much money. Yes, and that includes their performers too. Now, I should note, they ran SmackDown in an empty arena. As I'm recording this right now, they're planning on running Raw in an empty arena, or in the Performance Center. Same thing with NXT and the upcoming SmackDown, and of course WrestleMania in a couple weeks. To the best of my knowledge, I don't know if they've even tested people yet. And from what I understand, they just allowed their corporate workers to work from home. What the hell? The only other idiotic organization that's been doing that, I mean, UFC, although from what I understand, they're willing to take care of their workers medically. So I'll give them props for that. And I think the only other major company that's still having people come in no matter what is iHeart. So for the people at iHeart that are forcing some of my friends that work for your on-air stations to come in, y'all can kiss my ass, because that's absolutely pathetic. Tommy Two Chip says the coronavirus is no joke, but I guess the show must go on. In Vince McMahon land, I guess. Nate Dog Kata. This would have been a perfect time to give the wrestlers an off season, but they couldn't even do that. I agree. Cloudy Grouchy Knight says they need to postpone it to Ohio, Indiana, Alaska, or Utah. I wouldn't. Well, look, first of all, he can't run in the States regardless. No way. No how. Maybe on an Indian reservation. Even then, UFC tried to do that. And actually, I think they closed all the casinos on most notable Indian reservations. And also, it's highly irresponsible to do that too, especially if you're not testing anybody. Also, Ohio estimated they have about 100,000 cases and counting. So it's definitely not 1 or 5. Yeah. Why, a lot of people are just saying, why not postpone it? Why not give people time? I don't know. Joshua Munn, LOL, a huge first for WrestleMania, the lowest attendance record of all time, 0 fans. It's ridiculous. Sometimes you just need a little patience. Sometimes you just need to wait and see. Sometimes you just got to cut your losses and wait. Because guess what? If WWE went somewhat dark or recorded a few weeks worth of shows with some archived footage for the next few months, as hard as it might be, guess what? When they do finally come back, when they would finally run a stadium show or even just a small arena, think about how well that would rate. Think about the positive fan reaction. Think about how people would feel overjoyed. And by the way, I enjoyed SmackDown last week, and I give props to everybody involved for trying to keep our minds off this thing. But you get to a point where this is getting worse and worse right now, and do you really want to sacrifice your brand, your flagship show, because of ego and, I don't know, pettiness? I don't get it. I just don't get it. But folks, I want to hear from you. What do you think about WrestleMania being run in the Performance Center? What do you think about everything else going on? Once again, I hope y'all stay safe. I hope y'all stay home. I hope y'all, if you can, obviously most people aren't attending restaurants, nor should they right now. But if you want to support your local business like a restaurant, order takeout, get a gift card, do something. Support your local food bank. Help somebody in need, especially if they're vulnerable, especially if they're elderly. Don't buy 48 rolls of toilet paper. Just look out for each other. Take care of each other. Stay safe. Be sure to stay tuned for more updates. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, take care. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and the podcast. Please enable notifications because while I'm going through this too right now here in Jersey, I'm doing my best to not only keep it together, but to put out content for all you guys and give you a little bit of a distraction, a little bit of normalcy in the midst of some serious chaos. So stay safe, guys. God bless y'all. I'll talk to you again soon. And as always, enjoy the matches.